What's up, guys and girls? It's Ghostrobo, and I played Skull and Bones, and I'm here to tell you all about it. Ubisoft's newest IP was unveiled at their press conference yesterday, and I think it was one that was met with extreme excitement because of the awesome trailer, and then a little bit of confusion of like, how the heck can this pirate ship gameplay be fleshed out to a full game? And it looked like at first blush, they just ripped the pirate ship mechanic, the boat combat out of AC Black Flag, and then concocted an entirely a whole multiplayer game out of it. And I got to play 2 matches and a tutorial. The tutorial was helpful in getting used to the controls and how these ships control. There were 3 ships available in the build I played. We had the Marksman that you're seeing here, which is a long range. You had the Bruiser, which was your ship that was able to come in and ram and deal a lot of damage, and then you had the Enforcer, which is a slow, almost tank-like ship, but that could deal quite a bit of damage. So I played, first off, as the Bruiser, and that was a whole lot of fun. You have 3 weapons, 3 basic weapons, your cannons on the sides, your cannons in the front, and then for the Bruiser, you have a big, giant ram that does just that. It can blow holes into enemies. And what are we trying to do here? The mode was called Loot Hunt, and the goal was to get gold. So the gold could be acquired 2 major ways. One, by taking down merchant ships, which are neutral boats in the waters that either team can attack. And you'll have some that start by you, they'll have some that start by them, but eventually everything just kind of gets into one big mess. It's like the pool begins with, one team on one side, one team on the other, but before you know it, everybody is just splashing everybody, and it's mass chaos. The other way is by crushing opponent ships, although they have far more health than the merchants, and you'll see that on your screen now. The way to sink a ship is by taking down one side. So you've got 2 health bars each side of the ship, and you don't have to worry about getting it all the way down. You just have to worry about getting one of them down, and that will sink the ship. Now, they are able to respawn, but you'll get a huge amount of gold, and even more if they're carrying more. So at times they'll tell you, ooh, this guy becomes a target because he or she has so much gold on them. And then the ship goes down, and they're able to respawn. But the respawns eventually end, and we'll get to that a little later. Once there's a certain either amount of loot reached or a certain timer reached, I'm not exactly sure, but once one of those requirements are met, it gives you an escape timer, and you have to escape before that to sort of seal and lock in your loot score. Otherwise, you can get chased by these pirate hooligans or destroyed, I guess, by your opponent. It controlled pretty darn well, actually. I was impressed by how maneuverable the boats felt. I was pretty excited by the fact that I had what I felt was like a good handle on the aiming, on the turning, on the speeding up and slowing down. You'll see there's a little knots meter that indicates your speed, and you can constantly be messing with your sails to speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And then wind plays a factor as well. There's little arrows in the mini-map, and if you are going directly against the wind, you'll hit a yellow zone where you go slow. If you're going directly with the wind, you'll hit a blue zone where you go even faster. But it's very interesting, especially because you basically have 2 health bars, and you have to sort of position yourself to never expose your whittled down side. And that creates some interesting maneuverability scenarios that are more fun than maybe it seems when you're just like, oh, boats moving around and shooting each other with cannons. I will say that, to me, this game is more about movement than it is about attacking. It's more about positioning, because if you do get the right position, you can board the ship. You saw that a little bit ago. You can ram if you're the Bruiser like I was. You can line up those cannons at close range for more damage. And you can sort of navigate to the weaker side of your opponent's boats in order to take them down quicker than they'd be expecting. So it's a lot about maneuvering, and it's a lot about taking your boat and figuring out what it does well and where it needs to be in the waters. Because at one point I was like, oh man, I love this Bruiser. It can just ram right into dudes. And that does a ton of damage, way more than any weapon I've seen. But I got greedy, and I went into a field of 3 boats, tried ramming into all of them, and I just got pegged by cannon fire left and right, because you reload that stuff pretty quick, and they have multiple rounds, multiple volleys that they fire. And so if you're up close and personal with more than one ship, it can be dangerous. You want to use that ram to catch an enemy ship off guard and to come at them when maybe they're busy fighting someone else. And there's also the element, like I said, of the merchant ships. So collecting the merchant ships won't give you as much gold as taking down a direct enemy ship, but it will give you more loot. And there may be a strategy where you send one of your teammates or two of your teammates off just to farm the merchant ships, and everyone else tries to take on the enemy armada, or maybe you all group up and go like, okay, we're gonna all group on one and group on one and group on one versus just a smorgasbord battle. I think there's a lot of interesting strategy, especially with voice chat and a team that is coordinated. Now, I will say that my second match exposed what I feel are some concerns with Skull and Bones. I played as the marksman, and I felt far less effective. With the Bruiser, I got first place on my team, a lot of gold, a lot of damage, a lot of kills, and when that match ended, I had 950 gold, so I just busted my butt straight for the escape point. Timer comes up, and you can continue to fight, continue to try to acquire gold, and respawns are turned off, so it's very enticing to stick around and shut down an enemy ship, because if you do, they don't get any of their gold, but at the same time, you got to worry about yourself, and you do have two sides, 2 health bars, so maybe getting out of there as quick as possible is a good thing. Anyhow, the second match was nowhere near as successful. I was a marksman, and it was definitely fun, because you had a mortar type attack, and that was interesting and very strategic because you had to lead enemy ships. It took quite a while to fire that into the air and then have it drop down. And that was on a bumper. And you also have a special ability, and I didn't really see what the Bruiser's was, but for the marksman, it fired a back cannon. So if you're being chased or tailed, you could fire a cannon out of your rear, which was interesting. But the mortar was really fun to use. It was on a pretty quick recharge timer, so you were able to get those fired off quite frequently, and they did massive damage when they hit, but you did need a position, and if you were fighting against another marksman or a bruiser ship that had more speed, it was tricky. An enforcer, pretty easy to hit. Some of the merchant ships, pretty easy to hit, but human-controlled quicker ships were more difficult to predict. You also had a long-range cannon that got a little mashy in terms of just firing it at all times. And I wasn't able to do as much damage, so I found myself to be kind of useless in terms of taking down enemy ships, and I realized I probably should be focusing on merchants, and maybe that's the point of marksman, to get those mortar strikes in on the enemies, and then get the normal cannon strikes in on the merchants, and so you kind of become a dual threat and have to really work both fronts. And I think there can be some really good strategy here, especially if there's any sort of way to upgrade your boats, any sort of loadouts for the boats, even more variety than boats. You know, there's got to be more than 3, because you don't want it to become a rock, paper, scissors type ordeal. So if there's 5, 6, 7, 10, I don't know, however many types of boats, it could be pretty interesting. I don't know what you do to make this feel like a fleshed out full $60 game. I think that's my big concern right now. It's a very cool concept. It's a very it's impressive in that it controls better and feels better and is more strategic and fun than I expected. But what do you do to expand this? We saw one of my favorite games of 2017 released earlier this year, For Honor. Fantastic game, great combat, amazing idea. Did it suffer from a lack of content or a lack of variety or a lack of balance? Who knows what it was, but the player base is way down. And I still think that's a wonderful game, and I still love that game. But you don't want to run into that problem with Skull and Bones. And For Honor did include a single-player campaign that, while not amazing, was definitely good. What do they do with Skull and Bones? Is there running on foot? So far, it looks like it's all in boat. And if that's the case, you know, is this multiplayer only? Is there any single player? Is the single player just multiplayer matches with bots a la Titanfall? How do they handle that? I'm very curious to see what they decide to do to flesh this out, because I think it's a good idea. I was shocked that it was better than I was expecting. I was kind of, you know, really pumped up and amped by the trailer, the cinematic trailer, and then the gameplay kind of had me a little like, is this just gonna feel like clunky, boring boat combat? Why would I want to do that? But they managed to find a flame of fun in something that could otherwise be considered monotonous. And so for that, they have my interest. For that, they have my attention. For that, they have my further consideration. And I want to see what other modes there are. This is only one mode. You know, it was an early build of the game. And what else do they do? How do they expand upon this concept? Here was a cool way. One thing they've done so far, the crow's nest. You can go up in the crow's nest and spot boats, see what they've got going on, see what type of boat it is, and that helps you sort of plan your attack. And again, with time, with expertise, there could be a whole lot of strategy of, okay, recognizing, okay, we've got a bruiser, 2 enforcers, and a marksman coming at us. There is another marksman trailing far behind, so how are we going to take that out? Like, that kind of stuff I think is really exciting, and the possibilities there are pretty large. But what do they do to take advantage of their sort of strategic loop that they've created and flesh it out into other modes. Maybe a campaign. I would love if this was like a pirate game in some way. I know that was kind of what AC Black Flag already was, but, on foot sections as well. And I don't know if they plan on having a single-player campaign. I think it's all boat combat as far as I know. And who knows? Maybe this isn't supposed to be a full retail price. Maybe it's supposed to be more of an online service game. I don't know. I don't know what they're planning for. Maybe they don't even know. Maybe they have an idea and maybe it'll evolve. The game's not due till fall of next year, so a lot of time to go. But it's one that I'll keep my eyes on. It's one I think you should as well. Because this idea of 5v5 pirate ship battles and commanding these different boats with your friends was actually exciting, and just the pacing, sort of the more methodical nature, the calculating that you had to do in terms of, do I want to be going fast for more speed, do I want to be going slow for better maneuverability, do I want to be going fast to avoid, do I want to be slow but then at risk, how am I going to balance my two sides, can I position myself so that, oh crap, my left side is down to only 200 health but my right side's at 5,000, so as long as I stay running this outer loop, I should be a-okay. Like, very interesting and very cool. And I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I was impressed. So let's see, Skull and Bones, what you can do. Show us more, give us more, expand on this idea, flesh it out, because you have a great core, and now we just need to see that expand and grow like a wonderful flower. Pirates probably don't like flowers, but I definitely like you. So thanks so much for watching. Fantastic day. Glad I got to play it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Let me know what you think of Skull and Bones, if you're pumped for the game next year, and what you think about the combat and the multiplayer focus and the entire style of this new IP. Until next time, my swashbuckling friends, drink so much all. Thanks again. I love you. And we'll see you all later.